So, Baruch Hashem, tonight we're going to do Perek Mem Hey, chapter 45, and a portion of Perek Mem Vav, chapter 46. I think this is one of the highlights of the Sefer Tanya. You will see why. A very important part of Avodat Hashem, the service of Hashem, is to be able to connect with Him. To be able to connect with Hashem. Serving Hashem, or as others would call it, the worship of God, is not just ritual. It's just not just prayer. Even the observance of the Torah mitzvot, which is really an integral part of our faith of Judaism, still, it does not imply in itself that one is connected to Hashem. One really becomes connected to Hashem when he knows Him. When you know a friend, when you know your spouse, what that means is that you have a desire, you have an interest to be together, to connect, to do for each other. That is the meaning of knowing. And this knowledge comes about through a certain awakening of one's latent love that he has within him towards Hashem. What that means is that it's impossible, really almost impossible, to form a connection with that which is spiritual in nature unless there's a certain awareness, unless there's a certain desire and interest in pursuing that which we do not readily see. With that which is physical, we rarely connect because we feel an immediate attraction to it or not. That which is physical in nature, we either want it or we do not want it because we immediately observe something about it that either attracts us to it or not. So it's easier to connect with that which is physical than it is that which is spiritual. The tools to connect to Hashem, therefore, are love and fear of Hashem. Now, even though it's true, we do connect to Hashem through the observance of His Torah and mitzvot. Very, very true. Yes, and that is an important part of what we do. Still, what I'm saying and what I'm pointing out is that the true service of Hashem, which involves connecting to Hashem in a very, very strong connection, needs to happen through Yir'ah and Ahava. Because if one observes Torah and mitzvot and does not have any interest, desire, and aspiration to connect to Hashem on a deep level, then what will happen to that which he does is it will become routine, a ritual. That's all. So of course he's going to be rewarded for it. Of course there's a certain connection on a certain level to Hashem. After all, we're connected to Him because we're alive. He provides for us life. There's different kinds of connections. So that's why I'm emphasizing that the real connection, the most powerful connection, is the service of Hashem through love and fear. Now, the best way to understand this, as he will point out in Perek Mem Vav, is something called neshikot, kisses. Now, we all know what a kiss is. We all know what a hug is in the physical terms. But in the spiritual term, the spiritual realm, a hug and a kiss is much more powerful. As the Zohar calls it, Dabkut Ruha Beruha. There's something that is defined as a connection between one spirit and another. True soulmates are connected through their spirit on the level of the neshama. Obviously, that's not enough. They must do for each other. We live in a physical world. And it's not just enough to tell someone, I love you, I care about you. Prove it. You need to do something to prove it, to demonstrate it. So, on a spiritual level, one can form a very, very strong connection. If this can be done on a physical level, then you could imagine how this can be on a spiritual level. Much more powerful than the physical. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about it in Perek Mem Vav, chapter 46, how this happens. But here in Perek Mem Hey, in chapter 45, we're going to talk a little bit more about the right approach, how to go about triggering the love for Hashem in a different way than we've learned till now. All that we've learned till now, I mean, part of what we've gone over, is that love and fear is something that is done with the heart. In other words, the observance of Torah mitzvot should be done with the heart, and that is through the love and the fear of Hashem. So love and fear of Hashem, they are the wings, as was described. They are the ones that supply the fuel or the momentum for us to want to continue to do something. However, now we're going to see that there's another approach that is also possible, that one can take this approach to awaken in him the desire to connect to Hashem. This desire is a very important desire because it will ultimately determine whether one performs the mitzvot, whether one learns the Torah lishma or not. Lishma means for Hashem's sake. So it's no longer just about connecting to Hashem in the most powerful way. It actually can determine the quality of our mitzvot. Is it being done lishma, Hashem Shamayim, for the sake of Hashem, or not? A person can be very, very consistent and very devout in his observance of Torah mitzvot and still not be doing it 100% lishma. Maybe he has some other interest of why he wants to do it. So he's doing a good job. But is it lishma? Lishma is a very, very high level. It means, I'm out of this. I'm doing this only for Hashem. I don't care about myself. It is pure. You know, when you buy pure orange juice, it's supposed to be pure. But sometimes it's from concentrate. Sometimes it has water. We talk about pure. Pure kavanah, only for the sake of Hashem. That is the ultimate goal of what we want to do. So, in the same way that one can do a mitzvah out of love and fear for Hashem, one can also have the approach of la'asot nachat ruach, to please Hashem, in the same way that a child wants to please. Very high level, very strong, with the right motivation. And this is definitely a place where one can begin. This may not necessarily be the highest level of all, but it's definitely a place to start connecting to Hashem, whether you take the approach of plain ahava v'yirah, or you go on to the next level, la'asot nachat ruach l'Hashem, to please Hashem, which is in some ways a lot closer to the ultimate goal of doing something lishma, for the sake of Hashem. Because there are levels we discussed, levels of yirah, levels of ahava, fear and love. Here, we're going to see another approach, not necessarily a level, but another approach of how to attain this connection with Hashem, a loving connection. And that is through the midah of Yaakov Avinu. Abraham Avinu represents or exemplifies the midah of ahava. As the pasuk says, Abraham ahuvi, my beloved. Love and fear in themselves emanate from chesed and gvura. Chesed means kindness, gvura, severity. So you have chesed with ahava, or ahava with chesed, and you have yirah with gevura. Okay? Abraham Avinu, through his life, through his example, through his deeds, exemplified and had within the power of his neshama that ability to demonstrate in a very, very complete way the love for Hashem. Doesn't mean that no one else had it, but he exemplified it. When we say exemplify, it means that the emphasis on his life, the deeds that he performed, the way he dealt with people, you could see the ahava, you could see the chesed in him stand out. Then you have gevura that was exemplified by Yitzchak. The fear, that's gevura. So, what is Yaakov? Yaakov represents Tiferet. in between Chesed and Gvura. And what does Tiferet comprise of? Rachamim, compassion. So, what's the significance of compassion? Since the whole idea that we're talking about here is trying to attain a connection to Hashem, the observance of Torah mitzvot, lishma, we want to see how this is possible through the Midah of Yaakov. Because we already saw Ahava and Gvura. This additional approach is significant because sometimes people cannot just awaken that love and fear in them so easily, even though we're going to see soon that it is possible even for the lowest of the lowest to attain it. Still, it's not always easy. But this approach, Tiferet, is possible. What does Tiferet involve? What does it mean to have compassion as exemplified by Yaakov? And basically we will see that what is involved is having pity or compassion on one's neshama. This holy spark that has come down from such a lofty level above to dress itself up in a body which is animated, receives its vitality from the klipot, from the impurities, the impure shells. In a way it's in a prison. And it's much worse off, this neshama, if God forbid, chas v'shalom, it committed sins through its speech, through its machshava, through his ma'asim, through his deeds, thoughts. Regardless of how he sinned, he has distanced himself more than what he's already distant. The fact that his neshama came down from above to a place that is so full of hester, so full of the concealment of Hashem, such great darkness in this world. The darkness is so great that you have open rebellion against Hashem. You know people like that. This phenomenon of rebellion against Hashem, atheism. How could that be when things are so obvious? Well, apparently they're not so obvious. Why not? Because there's a hester. And that concealment is so powerful, so strong that some people just can't get themselves to believe that there's a power above them that created this world. So, before learning Torah, before observing the mitzvot, this approach can be helpful, that one should have rachamim on his neshama, to elevate it back to its source. Because if you want to connect, you want to serve Hashem, then you need to elevate it. You need to get it out of the klipot. You need to bring it back to its shoresh, to its root. So hopefully, if one has enough compassion on himself, on his neshama, he's sensitive enough to realize how far he is and how he can come close, this idea of rachamim may help him elevate himself and enable him to connect to Hashem. So what I'll do this time is, like I did last time, read most of this from inside the Sefer, because I think in this way we will be able to touch on every point without skipping around. This is a short chapter, and that's what we will hopefully with Hashem be able to go on to Perek Mem Vav. And he says like this: Yesh derech yashar lifnei ish la'asok b'torah mitzvot lishman. There is a straight path that can lead one to observe Torah and mitzvot lishman, for the sake of Hashem. How's that? Through the approach of Yaakov Avinu. Just another approach. The approach of Yaakov Avinu, the midah of Yaakov Avinu. Shehi midat harachamim. His midah is the midah of compassion. The oreb b'machshavtot chila rachamim rabim v'nei Hashem al nitzotz elokut hamechaye nafsho. And that is to have compassion on that soul, that spark, that divine spark that gives vitality to the physical body. And this spark came down from Mimekoro Chaya Chaim and Sof Baruch Hu, from a very lofty place. And not only did it come down from a lofty place, it was, and in some ways it's still, to some extent, connected to the Ora and Sof, to the divine light, which is Memale Kol Amim V'Sovev Kol Amim. It fills the entire universe. V'Kula Kameh Kelo Hashiv. Nothing is significant before Hashem. And this soul, nitlabesh b'mashcha dechivya, And this spark dressed itself up in this skin of the serpent. Remember we saw this before? It's a Kabbalistic concept, the skin of the serpent. We're not talking about the serpent himself. This is just the skin of the serpent, which describes the physical body. In other words, there's a little bit of that serpent, of all those klipot in the physical body. Now, as a result of being in this physical body, it means that this individual right now is more distant from Hashem than he was before. A neshama, a soul by itself, is so pure. There's no Yetzer Hara. There's no conflicts. It knows exactly where it came from, and that's where it wants to go back. If you can ask the neshama what it wants, I just want to be close to Hashem. It has no other desire. It's pure. The problem is when it dresses itself up in the physical body, that all the conflicts begin, that all the confusion erupts. We are being pulled and dragged into doing things of this physical world. And that's normal, that's natural, it's okay to want certain things. You have to live, you have to eat. But we forget that the essence of the human being really is neshama. So right now he's saying that this is causing distance, the fact that it's dressed up in the physical body. Very far, mi'or pnei hamelech, betachlit ha'erchek, it's very far as you can imagine. Very distant. You know why? Very, very distant. Don't forget that this world, the world of Asiyah, is the furthest one from Hashem. This is where the klipot, the shells, are coarse, thick. This is where the Hester is the greatest of all. If you can go up to another world, you can go up to Beriyah, Yetzirah, anywhere you choose, other than Asiyah, you wouldn't have so much Esther, you would see angels in some of them. One would therefore become more cognizant of Hashem in those worlds. This is the world where the Esther is so great that people can actually not know that Hashem exists, or ignore Him, even though they do know He exists. This is possible only in this world. And the more so, if he focuses on his deeds, how low he sank, how his speech, his deeds, his ma'asav, diburav, u'machshavotav, miyom hiyoto shelo tovim hema, they're not good. If he focuses on them too, not only on the lowness of the soul, being dressed in the physical body, but because of his comportment, whether it was with his thought, his speech, or his deeds, they're no good. ומלך אסור ברהטים בראיתי מוחה כי יעקב חבל נחלתו. And the king, this is an expression that borrows from Shir HaShirim, Asur Barehatim. Now in Shir HaShirim, that example, those words that the king is tied to the Rehatim. One translation of Rehatim is the locks of hair. In other words, the king is so attached, doesn't want to let go, that he attaches himself to anything he can. And even though he's becoming like entangled in the locks of hair. Another translation of Rehatim is in the Shikatot HaMayim, where the animals drink water. Those are also called Rehatim. The water flows in them. What all of these have in common, when you see the word Rehatim, it is something that connects something to another, or something through which something else flows. It means it's connected. Rehatim, something which is connected. It could also be, for example, the gutter from where the rain coming from the roof flows through. So that allows one to grab onto if one wishes to still connect and not fall off the roof, not fall off the house, for example. Either way, however you translate Rehatim, in this context, he says the Melech is Asur Rehatim, Asur not necessarily being connected, but in some ways imprisoned or caught. Bereite Mocha, in the, I guess you can use the word, channels of the thoughts, that run through the mind. Bereite mocha, it is being caught there because of the thoughts are not proper. Ki Yaakov hevel nachalato. Yaakov is the rope. In this case, the translation is the rope of his inheritance. What does all this mean? So he says like this, Kabbalistically, when we do something down here, we affect the upper worlds. So using this word, hevel, rope, we can interpret what is happening when an individual does something right or wrong, is that it is like he's pulling a cord, pulling a rope. He's doing it down here, but that rope is connected above, and that's affecting the upper world. This is really the mystical, Kabbalistic explanation of the exile of the Shekhinah. When we do something wrong, we're actually like compelling the Shekhinah to be exiled as well. So not only are we distant, now we're causing the Shekhinah to be exiled as well through the Ma'asim that are not proper. All right, so thinking about all of this, על זה נאמר, וישוב אל השם וירחמהו, לעורר רחמים רבים לשם השם, השוכן איתנו. On this it says that one can do teshuvah, that one can return to Hashem. And if one makes an effort to return to Hashem, Hashem will have compassion over him. So, therefore, it is up to us to ask for rachamim. Hashem השוכן איתנו. For Hashem who is with us. כי דכתיב השוכן איתם בתוך תומתם. Hashem is with us even though we're in an improper state, an unclean state. Hashem is still with us. So if we have these thoughts running through our mind, if we focus on this, we can be me'orer rachamim, using the midah of rachamim, upon our spark and upon the fact that we have may perhaps caused the exile of the Shekhinah. All right. Now he explains this is what can be seen in the power of Yaakov, in the example of Yaakov. Now, when we read the parasha of Yaakov and Rachel, we read it somewhat literally, the story of how Yaakov met her, how he very much liked her, how he wanted to marry her, right? Now you're going to be introduced to a Kabbalistic interpretation or a deeper interpretation of those words that are described in the Torah, in how strongly Yaakov felt for Rachel. וזהו שאמר הכתוב, וישק יעקב לרחל, Yaakov kissed Rachel, וישא את קולו ויבך, and he raised his voice and he cried. Now, Yaakov cries. Why does Yaakov? He just met Rachel. He kissed her on the forehead. She was his relative. But why does he cry? Do you recall why he cried?
He's not going to be buried next to her.
So he saw in Ruach HaKodesh that he will not be buried with her. At least that's one explanation. Okay, he has a reason to cry. Is that something to cry about? I mean, obviously all of these Pesukim have a deeper meaning. What does it mean exactly that he cried about? What is Yaakov's koach? That is being taught to us. The power of Yaakov here is through the midah of rachamim. So when he kisses her and he raises his voice and cries, it's something else. Ki Rachel היא כנסת ישראל מקור כל הנשמות. Rachel represents the congregation of Israel, the source of all the neshamot. Kabbalistically. Yaakov b'midato aliyonah, through his high midah character, which is midat harachamim in atzilut. Hu ha'me'orer rachamim rabim aleha. He's the one that awakens compassion over her. Vayisait kolo lemala. Therefore, when he raises his voice upwards, he's doing it lemekor harachamim ha'elyonim anikraim av harachamim u'mkoram. He's raising his voice to the source of the highest rachamim. It's called av harachamim, and the source of all compassion. What's that? You have Avarahman and you have Avarachamim. Avarahman is Rachamim be'atzilut. Avarachamim is the Yud Gimel Midot HaRachamim. Remember that? The 13 Midot of Rachamim, the most powerful prayer that Moshe had at his disposal. Shem El Rachum V'Chanun El Chapayim. That's called Midat HaRachamim Ha'elyonim, or Avarachamim, the highest form of Rachamim. So he, by raising his voice, and he represents Rachamim, he's raising his voice in pleading, in crying out to the highest form of Rachamim, to the source of all Rachamim. Vayefk, and he cries, Leoreru le'amshich misham Rachamim rabim al kol neshamot, to draw from there compassion over all the souls, Val makor Knesset Israel, and on the source of Knesset Israel, the Jewish congregation, Le'alotan migalutan, to raise them from their galut, U'le'ahdam biyichud ha'elyon or Ein Sof Baruch Hu, and to connect them to Hashem, b'bchinat neshikim. In what way? In the way or in the aspect of a kiss. What's that? That's idapkut rucha berucha, the highest possible connection, the highest. When the two spirits are connected, which is symbolized through the kiss. Mouth with mouth. Not a kiss in the forehead, not a kiss in the cheek, but the two mouths. That is the most powerful connection on a Kabbalistic level, of course, because plain kisses don't necessarily mean anything. It could be a fake kiss. Yeah, sometimes people kiss, but they don't really like you. That's just the norm. I'm sure you know about that. They just meet relatives, they feel that they need to kiss. Do they really mean it? Not necessarily. Then you have, of course, something which is more passionate, which is also not exactly 100% real. It's passion. Here we're talking about idabkut rucha berucha, where the spirits join. The strongest power, the most powerful connection possible. As the pasuk alludes to, Yishakeni mineshikot piu, that's what we want Hashem to do for us. That the kiss should come from Him through the mouth. Dainu itkashrut dibur ha'adam, that man should be able to connect to Hashem through the dibur, through his speech. How? Bidvar Hashem zu halacha, through the speech of Hashem, which is represented in halacha. So when we learn halacha and we say the words of the halacha, we're connecting to Hashem bidvar Hashem, through the halacha, through his speech. V'chen machshava b'machshava u'maaseh b'maaseh, and same thing with our thoughts and with our deeds. With our deeds through the maaseh mitzvot, by observing the mitzvot. Bifrat maaseh tzedakah v'chesed, and especially so through the deeds involving charity and chesed. After all, what are we talking about over here? Talking about rachamim. When one has compassion for another individual, he becomes a vessel himself for the compassion of Hashem. You're good and kind to others, Hashem will be good and kind to you. So especially when one connects to another human being through the deeds of charity and kindness. The chesed ro'a yamina. What's chesed? Chesed represents Kabbalistically the right arm. V'ubchinat chibuk mamash, which represents an embrace, a real embrace, not a partial embrace, a real complete embrace. As the pasuk says, v'imino techabbekeni, his right arm embraces me. Ve'esek haTorah bedibur u'machshavat ha'iyun en b'chinat neshikim mamash. And then one's involvement, engaging in the study of the Torah through his speech and through his thoughts in depth, these are represented, or these represent the kisses, because we are involved in it, we connect to them, we observe them. By doing all this in a proper way, one can come to the level of ahava rabbah, that immense love that we've spoken about before, b'itgalut libo, in a revealed state in his heart. As it is written in the pasuk that Yaakov redeems Avraham. Very interesting point. This is how he ends chapter 45. That one can come through a revealed state of love in his heart. Revealed meaning that it's not just there in potential, it's actually there at all times, constantly being felt. The desire is there. He wants it. He wants it on his own. He's not doing it because he's told to do it. This is in a revealed state. As it's written that Yaakov redeems Abraham. How does Yaakov redeem Abraham? Abraham, we said, is the love, right, and the kindness exemplified in his life. But sometimes that does not come out. You have people who are very cold, indifferent, and not sensitive. You think they're ever going to be kind to others? The midah of Yaakov, therefore, that aspect of Yaakov, called rachamim, is another way to bring that about, because if you think about that spark, that neshama, that divine holy spark within us, from where it's come down, how it enclosed itself in the body, how in some ways it's trapped or distant from Hashem, especially if one's thoughts or deeds were not so good. One can arouse that compassion on himself and on the Shekhinah, of course, too. To want to elevate that spark back to its right place. So this can hopefully get him to have that love for another human being, that love for Hashem, more bit galut liba, more in a revealed state. Bring it out into the open. A lot of people do tzedakah, chesed, but they don't do it because they love to do it. They do it because Hashem told them to do it, which is good. That's very nice. That's not the goal. The goal is that you should love to do it. You should want to do it. We need to adapt the midot of Hashem, to adopt them with an O. Make it part of us, that we should have them. We should be compassionate the same way He's compassionate. So this midah of Yaakov is significant because it helps us start somewhere. Have pity on yourself. Have pity on your soul. And in this way, you will, B'ezrat Hashem, have compassion on others as well. The main idea here, however, is to get us to connect to Hashem, to have that revealed desire, revealed love, to want to be close to Hashem in our heart at all times. It's there in potential, but it's not there at all times. It's not revealed. So the midah of Yaakov helps to at least bring us to that awareness. Look how far we are and what we need to do to come closer to Hashem. Okay, that was chapter 45. Let's go on to chapter Memvav 46. Here, in this chapter, we're going to find out some very interesting ideas that seem to be a little bit puzzling. One is that it is possible for every Jew, no matter how low he is spiritually, to reveal the love for Hashem. That we know. We've been talking about that it's possible for every Jew, no matter how low he is, to reveal it. But what we're going to see that is interesting here is that it's not only possible, it could be done through hitbonenut peshuta. It could be done through a very simple meditation, simple thoughts, not so much hitbonenut about the creation of the world, which is, we said before, is something very, very good and important. It could be done through hitbonenut peshuta, and what's going to be unique, what he's going to tell us here that is very, very different than what we would have thought, is that dafka, especially the ordinary individual, the one who's lower, the one who's more distant, it can come to him easier than it can come to all of us who are closer already. You wouldn't think that. Wouldn't you say that it's easier for somebody who's already observant and religious to come close to Hashem than somebody who's far? No. Now, he doesn't say it, but I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on this idea. The pasuk says, "Shalom, shalom la rachok vela karov amar Hashem urfativ." Shalom, peace to the one who's far, to the one who's close. Hashem heals everyone. There's a Zohar that says, who are we talking about here? La rachok vela karov. And the Zohar seems to be saying that there's different kinds of balei teshuvah that come back to Hashem. one who was very far, distant, didn't know anything, didn't do anything, and wants to come closer. One who's closer and wants to get even closer. Who has the hardest time getting closer to Hashem? The one who's already close. So this fits in perfectly with the Zohar. The Zohar says, the one who's close to Hashem already, for him to elevate himself to a higher madriga, to a higher level, requires a lot more effort. Don't think it's so easy for him. He wants to be closer. Imagine he's a minister. And now he wants to be second in command. I mean, not second in command. He wants to be very close to the king. It takes a lot more effort for him to prove himself that the king will appoint him to a higher position. The king will want him to be close to him. The one who's far away, even though he's far, has a better chance to get close. Now, when we're saying getting close, we don't mean that the one who's far is going to get closer than the one who's already close. What we're saying is that he can come close. So even though for people to do teshuvah does not always come easy, spiritual growth requires a lot of work. And there's a lot of tests and nisyonot and challenges. But you know people who have done teshuvah. We all know such individuals. Those who were totally not religious. Those who grew up in homes that are completely not religious. What happened? Now, Kabbalistically, there are explanations for that. Either it could be that this individual did some beautiful deed when he was young, and Hashem says, "B'schut," in the merit of what you did long ago, I'm going to send you a powerful signal that will awaken your heart. That is happening too. Or it could be that that man's grandparent, or great-grandparent, did something very, very special, or very, very righteous. And Hashem says, you know what, I'll take care of your grandchildren. I'm going to send them a powerful message, signal. It's still free will. It's up to them. But at least they have, as we would call it in Hebrew, protectia. They have pull, as they say in English, or as we say in Spanish, palancas. In other words, they have an extra merit of some sort that enables them to come back with tshuva. So we can have people who are very, very far come back. But that they should have it easier, that's interesting. And the reason for that is because, only because Hashem helps, which is always the case. Hashem always helps those who help themselves and make the first effort. But those who are already on a higher level, to further climb up the stairs, it becomes harder and harder. It's possible, but it's harder. Those who are distant, somehow, they have it within them. Because remember, it's already there. We just have to awaken it. They have it within them to come back, at least to the initial steps. So this is the bonenut that we're going to talk about, this simple meditation that is possible for every Jew, can enable him to do the service of Hashem, mitoch ahava v'shtokekut. It can enable him to eventually do the mitzvot and learn the Torah from love, not just because it is a mitzvah. It is possible. And it could motivate him enough to be successful in his learning. It can give him that momentum to continue to want to grow. Not just to get him to do it, but to give him the aspiration, the motivation that he needs to further do the mitzvot and learn Torah. So this is all important because a lot of Jews, unfortunately, are not always motivated. They may do it, they may learn, but do they have that motivation to continue to grow, to want to do it better, to do more? Not necessarily. So itbonenut, even on a simple level, can help not only bring him closer, enable him to connect, but also to get him to want to succeed and to do better in his Torah mitzvot. After all, what is teshuvah? Soon is the month of Elul, when we're going to be thinking of teshuvah. Teshuvah is not necessarily to correct a wrong or to fulfill that which we've been not fulfilling, but it's to improve that which needs improvement. Husband and wife can definitely sometimes find something to improve. We all need to improve. So here, what we're going to see here is a very, very powerful message that I believe is very, very helpful in marital relationships as well. And it was not only the connection with Hashem, but the idea that he's going to share with us, and we're only going to do it briefly, we'll continue next week about it, is that a certain hitbonenut will enable us not only to strive to want to do the Torah mitzvot, but also enable us to overcome obstacles that try to prevent us from getting close to Hashem. Two different things altogether, right? One, to want us to have the interest to do Torah mitzvot. And number two, to give us the koach, to motivate us, or the power to overcome any obstacles, and there are many obstacles that stand in the way of Avodat Hashem. And he will tell us that one way to think about our relationship with Hashem, a simple hitbonenut of our relationship with Hashem is as follows. It is completely natural for human beings to love another if they know that that individual loves them. You agree? It is completely natural for human beings to love someone else who they know loves them. The more so if the one who's loving us is a king, a very important person, and we are very, very low. Imagine somebody who's a homeless. Somehow he becomes aware that the king loves him. A homeless guy, somebody from the street, somebody very, very low. He says, the more so that such an individual will react in an even stronger way, with a stronger love towards the king than an average individual. Because he's so low, and still the king loves me. You follow me so far? Yeah. The more so, if we, the Jewish people, who are enveloped with the love of Hashem, he says, how he took care of us, took us out of Egypt, gave us the Torah and the mitzvot, and reveals this love to every Jew wherever he may be, regardless of his spiritual level. This simple contemplation should for sure awaken in us a very special love to Hashem. And in the same way that Hashem overcame, so to say, not that he needs to, but so to say, he overcame any objections or obstacles to his creating the world. And there are objections. Why create the world? Why create man? They're going to sin. Still, he overcame those objections. In the same way that Hashem overcame objections to create this world, we too can overcome any obstacles that prevent us from getting close to Hashem. I just gave you a brief introduction to chapter 46. I'm going to read a part of it and elaborate on this one point that he says that is a very significant point that I've spoken about in the past, and that is how one feels towards another individual, that individual feels towards him. Perek Mem Vav begins as follows. V'yesh derech yashar lifnei ish shaveh lekol nefesh. There is something that can really apply to every human being. This particular path is something that everyone can do, that everyone can embark on. In other words, to think about the following, that will help him. It can easily trigger or awaken that love that is concealed in the heart, to illuminate it in a very strong way, like a flaming fire in a revealed state in his heart, and in his mind, to the point of limsor nafsho l'Hashem, to the point of being prepared to give his life to Hashem, v'gufo u'meodo, and his physical body and his money, v'chol lev v'chol nefesh, with his entire soul and his entire heart, u'meod me'umka deliba be'emet lamito, really from the depth of his heart, 100% sincere, b'frat b'sha'at kriyat Shema, especially at the time of reading the Shema, which is a propitious time that we've discussed in the past, u'birchotah, and the blessings of the Shema, as he will further explain. Okay, what is that itbonenut? What is that contemplation that we've been talking about? And he says, what I just told you, it's to think about the following pasuk, following verse brought down in Mishlei. Shlomo Melech speaks about this, which contains this powerful message. When you think about the pasuk that says, "Kamayim apanim lapanim ken lev ha'adam el adam," in the same way that when you look at the waters, a body of water, a lake, a pond, you see your reflection. You do not only see your face, your reflection, but you also see the nuances that you make. You smile, you're sad, right? You can see all that in the water when you look into the water. So that's what Shlomo Melech says. Kamayim hapanim lapanim. Just like water can mirror your reflection to you, ken lev ha'adam la'adam. In the same way, the hearts reflect each other. How you feel towards someone, I can guarantee it 100% that individual feels towards you. You like him, he likes you. You hate him, he hates you. Approximately. We're talking not about one time you met him. You know this individual for a while. The hearts are in sync. It does not mean that the two of you will do as much for each other. Some people do a lot, some people do less. But because he does less, it does not mean that he loves you less. People care about each other as much as the other one cares about him. You know, it's a true reflection of the heart. You ever have a doubt about somebody if he likes you or not? Do you like him? He likes you. If you don't really like him, he doesn't like you. If you're part of it, so is he. It's exactly the same thing. Okay? Remember, a very important point in life, the best judge is how you feel towards a person. That's the way he feels towards you. So if you focus on this verse, on this message, כמו שקדמות וצורת הפנים שאדם מראה במים כן נראה לשם במים אותה צורה עצמה, the same way he says that when you look in the water you see that same reflection, ככה ממש לב האדם הנאמן באהבתו לאיש אחר. The same way when one is devoted, loyal to another individual, הרי האהבה זו מעוררת אהבה בלב חברו אליו גם כן להיות אוהבים נאמנים זה לזה. That awakens in the other person a similar love to be loyal to him as well. בפרט כשרואה אהבת חברו אליו, especially when he actually sees the love, he sees the actions, he sees the care. He not only feels it, he actually sees it. Now, what's very interesting about what he just said, I don't think anybody ever noticed it. If you learn the Tanya, you may understand what he's saying, but there's a very interesting point here that is perhaps lost. When he uses this pasuk to tell us that this is what Shlomo Melech meant, that love is a mirror image, the feelings that we have are reflected from the other individual who we love. It's not only that. What he is adding is an additional important point that is very helpful. You know what? Let's say you don't like the guy. For some reason. You can bring it about that he will like you. Because right now he doesn't. How's that? You begin to like him. So if you begin to work on your heart to like him, you're going to change his heart towards you. Where do we know this from? From Yaakov and Esav. What does Rivka tell Yaakov? When am I going to call you back home, to come home? She says, when I noticed that the hatred for Esav has left you. The hatred of Esav has left you? I will call you back when the hatred of Esav has left him. It's dangerous now. You understand the question? What does it mean, I will call you back when the hatred of Esav has left you? You know, does Yaakov hate Esav? Apparently. He does not like him so much. She's telling him this very powerful message here, this idea. When you develop a love for Esav, that you're concerned about him, and you care about him, that will help remove the enmity that he has now towards you. That is also the meaning of what the Torah says, the deeper meaning. When you see your enemy, his donkey, overloaded, the Torah tells us, help him. want to help the animal too. Even though he's your enemy, you don't like him. But the Torah uses a very unique language for helping. Azov ta'azov imo. Azov ta'azov imo. Azov means to let go, to abandon. Here the Torah is telling us, no, go help him. But here the word azov is very, very deep. It means that if you help the one you don't like, and he doesn't like you, you know what that help is going to cause? It's going to cause your enmity, your hatred, to leave you. Azov ta'azov imo, you know why you want to help him? Because you want that hatred to leave you. You want that hatred to leave him too. So it is possible to, even though initially we don't care for someone, we don't like someone, that's the way we feel in our heart. What can we do? That's nature. We don't like everyone. Some people we just don't care about so much. We don't like their way they behave. It is possible to awaken in them a love for us if we awaken in ourselves a love for them as well. So this pasuk can have a double meaning, double message. Yes, the hearts are a reflection. What you feel, the other one will feel. Plus, even if you don't feel that much for him, you can make it so that eventually he will feel better towards you if you feel better towards him. Now, I have a big question here. Before we go on, my question was, I'm not sure if he ever raises this, but I definitely feel that he has insinuated the point. Based on this important idea of how one feels towards another, that individual feels towards him, Hashem loves us, right? How can we don't always love him? We, Baruch Hashem, love him, but not everybody. Isn't that a good question? Based on what we just said, that it should be reciprocated, more or less, the feelings are the same. Hashem loves us. Then how come we don't always show that love for him? So, the answer is very simple. We do love him. Mm-hmm. The love is there. The connection and potential is there. The problem is that it's in the klipot. That neshama, remember, we've been speaking about it many times. It was mentioned that this world, because of the hester, concealment, because the body is from the klipot, from the impure shells, we're in a prison. We don't even know it ourselves. And because of that, because of all that concealment, because of all the impurities around us, we just simply do not bring it out. It doesn't come out automatically. That is why there's so much emphasis in this book of doing something even small, minute, to trigger it, bring it out. It's there, it's easy, it's accessible. Anyone can do it, he says. A little bit of thought, use your head. Look around what Hashem has done for you, look how much he loves you. Don't be ungrateful. You see, it needs a little bit of thought, of contemplation, itibonenut. That's all it takes. Then it will happen. Still, the rabbis still tell us, nonetheless, that if you ever want to know how much Hashem really loves you, ask yourself how much you love him, how much you love doing the mitzvot. In this way, you can really tell how much he loves you. Even though Hashem loves us, but the love is commensurate with how much we love him. So a Jew can know if Bashamayim they really like him or not. How? This is a test, by the way. You can test yourself. How much do you love the Torah mitzvot? The more you love it, the more you want to do it, the more they love you. It's very clear. No doubt whatsoever about it. There are levels of love. But obviously, naturally, Hashem does love the Jewish people. He chose us. It's just that we, because of all the concealment around us, because we're in the klipot, surrounded by all the impurities in the physical body, it's something that we have to overcome. We have to overcome these barriers in the way. And that is why Hashem gave us mitzvot. These mitzvot help us connect to him, help us become more giving and kind and sensitive towards others. Because not everything is natural. Even though the neshama is pure, but the body is not, so we want to purify that body. So the Torah and Mitzvot serve as a guide on how to connect and how to elevate ourselves in this physical world to get closer to Hashem. So continuing from inside, after telling us how the water is a reflection and so are the hearts, especially if that individual is kind to you and does something kind to you. This will apply, this rule will apply if the people are on the same level. They're like each other. The more so if we're talking about a king. An important, prominent king. He shows us his immense love. And to who does he show it? To the most simple individual. He says, imagine the king showing his immense love towards a simple, low individual who's in the garbage, in the dumps. And he comes down to him. In Kol Sarav, he comes down to him from his palace with all his ministers. And he takes him out of the garbage, and he brings him to the palace. And not just to the palace. Room after room. He takes him to the most private quarters, where no other minister can go in. And he's there with him, close to him, embraces him, kisses him. And he's so close to him as two spirits are close to each other. If this is what happens to this low individual, the more so the more so double the love will be shown by this individual to the king. This simple individual, Shval Anashim, will definitely show a greater love than ordinary in Nefesh HaMelech towards this king. Bitkashrut HaNefesh, in a very, very strong bond. Mamash, milev v'nefesh mu'umka deliva le'enketz. In an unlimited way, you can't even imagine how such an individual, if two people would feel very strong about each other, especially when one is kind to the other, the more so if a king deals this way, acts this way with a low individual who's in the dumps. Can you imagine, it says, the more so that this individual will reciprocate a tremendous love for the king. You know what he says? Even if this low guy, simple individual, had a heart of stone. He says the stone will melt and be like water. And he will overflow with feelings, with emotions. Towards the king. In other words, it makes no difference that he started off with a heart made out of stone. He says, just like I just described to you, this particular example, Gadol yoter me'od, says, I have something that is even greater than all of this that you saw in this example. Much more. It says, a lot more than what I just described to you was done for us, Elokenu. A lot more than what I described to you between the king doing for this low person who was in the dumps. A lot more than all of that was done for us by the king, by Hashem. To a king who we cannot even imagine how great he is. He fills the entire universe. In other words, he's going to describe to us how HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who has thousands and thousands, millions and millions of angels, how he left everything and came down and chose us from the rest of the world and gave us the Torah to us and the mitzvot. How this act in itself is the greatest act of love, the greatest act of chesed that Hashem showed us, in how much He has done for us throughout our history. Just to finish off, because Hashem will continue this chapter in the next chapter, the next week. The focus here is on a very simple fact that even the Goyim have noticed. Even the non-Jewish worlds, those who have thought about it. Am Yisrael Chai V'Kayam. the Jewish people are still around. Why? Everybody else, the old big empires disappeared. Am Yisrael chai v'kayam, you're still around, you're still alive. As the Pasuk says, Vatem atevekim b'Hashem chayim kulechem hayom. Did I tell you about Mr. Putin? Rabbi Yosef, the chief rabbi of Israel, met with Putin recently. And Putin gave him an hour of his time, which is a lot more than he gives other dignitaries. And he asked him this question. He says, can I ask you, Rabbi, how come you Jews are still around when the Persians, Babylonians, the Sumerians, the Greeks, the Romans, they all disappeared? He says, and you were exiled, kicked out, beaten. The question that even Mark Twain asked. The rabbi, of course, wanted to hear what he has to say, and he tells it very plainly. It's the Torah. Your Torah that you learned, the rabbis that you had that taught the Torah, that gave it over to the following generations, that has kept you alive. Is that the answer? Yes, of course, it's partially the answer, but in Parshat Vayetchanan, if you look at the end of the parasha, it tells us what the reason for it is. You know why we're still alive? You're still attached to Hashem. You will always be connected to Hashem. You'll always be alive till this day. But why? We did not always do our job right. At the end of the parasha, it says it's because Hashem loves us. Me'avat Hashem etchem. You're not more than the Chinese. You're actually a very, very small nation. What do you have? Hashem loves you. And, number two, because he swore, and Hashem kept his promise. So here we have two explanations. Hashem loves us, Hashem kept his promise, and because of that, we're still around, against all the odds. This is what he's talking about here. Read your history. She'alna leyamim rishonim. Look back. Has this kind of history been experienced by any other nation? Has any other nation heard God directly as a whole? Seen all the miracles that you've seen? Read your own history. Read the Torah. And through the learning of your Torah, through the reading of your history, through the contemplation of Hashgachat Hashem on you, on the Jewish people, besides of the great creation that Hashem made, think a little bit. And these thoughts, B'ezrat Hashem, will be the ones that will trigger that love that is concealed to come out in the open.